Hello students, today in this video we're going to review linear functions. You remember that a linear function this year can be written in the form of y equals mx plus b. And we're going to just make sure you understand the parts. The m stands for the slope and the b stands for the y-intercept. And the x and y are actually points that are on the line once it is graphed. So let's just talk a little bit about slope first. We know that slope is represented by the letter m, but we also know that a way to write slope is rise over run. And another way we can deal with slope if we need to is the formula, which is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Notice that the y's are on top and the x's are on the bottom. Okay? Just two little reminders of how to find slope depending on what we're given. The b is the y-intercept. That's the place where the line that you drew crosses the y-axis. It can either be a negative number or a positive number depending on where that line crosses the y-axis. And if you have points on the line, you can plug them into the x and the y, and you can always figure out either the slope or the y-intercept based on the points and one of the other pieces of information. So let's look at the graph of this line. I've got a line, it's green, and the first thing I can tell is I can look at that line and I can say, wow, that slope is positive. So whenever I find the slope, I know it has to be a positive number. Well, to find slope, since I have a line, we do rise over run. So I'm going to start at this dot right here, and I'm going to go up to this dot right here. So I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I rose 5. I don't know why I put an R. So we know that m equals 5, and I ran 1, so the slope is 5. Now the next thing I need to look for is the y-intercept. I forgot to tell you, we're trying to find an equation of this line. The next thing I need to do is find the y-intercept. Where does this green line cross the y-axis? It's right here, that little dot right there on the y-axis, and that is -1. So b equals -1. So now that I know the m and the b, I can write my equation, which would be y equals 5x minus 1. All we do is take the slope and the y-intercept, plug it in for m and b, and there's the equation of our line. So what happens if I'm given 2 points that I know are on the line, and I need to come up with an equation? I've got -3,7 and 0,2. How do I figure out what the equation is? Well, the first thing I have to do is find the slope. Since I don't have it graphed, I'll use the formula to find slope, and that is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'm just going to plug in those numbers. y2 in this case is going to be 2 minus y1, which is 7, over x2, which is 0, minus -3. And I know that 2 minus 7 is -5, and 0 minus -3 is the same as 0 plus 3, so that's 3, so my slope must be -5 over 3. And now I need to find the y-intercept. How do I find the y-intercept when I don't have a graph? Yes, it's given to you because the y-intercept always has an x value that is 0. And when x is 0, you have the y-intercept. Do I have a point that has x is 0? Absolutely. So my b is +2. Because again, the y-intercept is the point where x is 0, so that's 2. So the equation of my line would be y equals -5/3 x plus 2. So here are your 3 practice problems for today. All you're going to do is write the equation that matches each one. I'm going to show them to you on this graph paper because the lines are darker and they're easier to see, and I'm going to hold them there for a while. Question number 1 gives you a line in green and asks you to find the slope of, the equation of that line. Number 2 is a line in red and asks you to find the equation of that line. And number 3 gives you 2 points on a line and asks you to find the equation of that line. So please write down the equation of each one of these lines, take a picture of it, and submit that picture through Edmodo before class tomorrow.